Okay, we're good to go.
All right, this is number 5.
Oh, wait. Well, oh, you can do that.
Do you have 0 through 9?
Yeah.
What about when we get to 11? Will you have 2 ones? Hey guys, welcome to Zygrene Car Talk number 5. In this one, we're actually going to just be addressing some of the questions that we got in the comments on YouTube in kind of like a rapid fire way, because it's kind of hard to deep dive into all the questions that we get. So I'm just going to answer them pretty briefly here. So I have the number 3 episode open on my phone. So that was, track day tips and best track car platforms. Got a lot of good feedback on that one. So I'll just start going through some of the questions here. 2 questions. What's your take on a turbo build versus NA build for a track car? Ooh. And what do you think about the Nissan S chassis? And by S chassis, I assume you mean like the 240 SX.
Oh, interesting.
Or the Silvia. All the Silvia, S13, S14,
Sure.
etc. So first off, turbo build versus NA build. I really don't have a preference. I've never had my own turbo track car. I've always been NA as far as my own cars go, but I have track turbo cars like the GTI, the Mark V GTI. I autocrossed the Fiesta ST, and then I've driven the Civic Type R. Those are all turbo cars. I would say in general, it depends on the track, I would say, more than anything.
Yeah.
For a track like Thunderhill West, which is pretty tight, quick lap times like sub 130 easily in most cars, I like NA because I like the throttle response. I like being able to manage how much gas I give it, in the transitions in the tight corners. I don't really want lag. So, S2000 at Thunderhill West, Miata, those cars all do great there. I really enjoy those. But at a track like Laguna, that's where I'm like on the main straight in like fourth gear in my S2000 at like, 7,000 RPMs and nothing's happening, and I get frustrated, and then I get passed by, what have you, like
something with a lot of torque and a lot of turbo.
Yeah, a Corvette or something. I'm like, well, damn. And then I catch them in the corners and whatever. So in those situations, I would love to have a turbo car just to have that huge amount of torque to help me, push up those uphill straights. But reliability wise, NA's, just has less parts and less heat. So that's my thoughts on that.
I think for me, I mean, I've tracked I don't have much of a comparison. I have my old 86, my 8086, and then that wasn't that powerful, but it was more instant. And like, the instant throttle is pretty nice. But like even in my Fiesta, actually, there's not too much lag.
Yeah,
it's actually a pretty responsive turbo, surprisingly. But even though sometimes I'm at the track, and like you said at Thunderhill West, there's a lot of turns and a lot of pedal action. Sometimes when I just put it on, I don't get that immediate response, and so that can be a little annoying. But I think, like you said, it's very dependent on the track and the type of driving you do. Yeah. But they're both good.
They all have their pros and cons.
Yeah.
If I could have it my way, I'd have one of each.
Yeah, why not? Yeah,
take the turbo 500 horsepower monster to Laguna, and then take the S2000 to Thunderhill West. Boom.
Cool.
Done.
Yeah, great.
All right. Oh yeah, the Nissan S chassis. I've never driven one. I've never driven 240 SX. So if you guys have one, let me know. I'd love to review it.
Yeah, and then I will say this: like, I have hardly seen any at the track. I mean, we have a friend that does drifting, and of course they're all there. But in terms of track driving,
there's not a whole lot.
There's not a whole lot. The only thing that Nissan is related is the 350, the Z series, and then also the GTR.
And the GTR, that's right. Okay. Let's see. Okay, so I got one question here.
Sure.
I know you mentioned you had an instructor for the first few track days, but how do you get better without one? How do you get better by going to track days alone? Just focusing on a few corners? And do you have... Okay, well, I'll just leave it at that for now, and I'll go into the rest of the question later. So how did I get, into my first few track days without an instructor, and also like not having many friends or hardly any that are into track days?
Yeah.
Well, I mean, we were lucky because we both started track days together, so we kind of like were able to have each other's backs, when certain things happen and whatever. Yeah. But in general, getting into track days without an instructor, it's really hard. Like you need someone experienced to sit with you. So most of the track day organizations here, like Speed SF, NCRC, On Grid, etc., if you sign up for the beginner group, You can, have an instructor provided for you, at least if you ask, for at least the first couple of sessions. And just that in itself helps you a lot because they teach you like how track etiquette works when you're on track, how do you let people pass, and it helps you learn the line as well. So I would say for my own experience, I only had an instructor for my first track day, but in general, I would say for the first 3 to 4, it's good to have an instructor. And then if you have friends that are like experienced after those instructor days, just have them ride with you.
Yeah, definitely. And I know it's hard because we can't really emphasize with that because we track together all the time. So we could ride in each other's cars and get a feel for the track and get a lot of more seat time, like essentially twice as much seat time.
Yeah.
But like if you don't have that kind of network yet, when you're on track, I think a question was kind of focused on what do you think on track? I think the person did nail it on the head where you focus on certain particular aspects of a track in terms of maybe a turn.
Yeah.
Or the best thing I can think of is basically learning how to cut down the time between you braking and accelerating.
Yep.
That's like if you can try to focus on that, you'll slowly start getting better because in the beginning you gas, a turn comes up, you lift off really early.
And you're coasting for like 3 seconds.
Yeah, you lift off, and I still do this. You can watch the videos of me doing it. I lift off, and then I get on the brake, and then I lift off, and there's too much time in between gas and brake. So if you can focus on really trying to cut down that floating time, I think that's a good way to, if you're on your own, to kind of figure out on track. Maybe do that for like 1 or 2 turns. Like, okay, I'm going to gas this longer, and then I'm going to just get on the brake right away before I turn.
Just test the limit of your car's braking capability. So, take it easy the first few laps, brake early. But then as you focus on those corners that you have more leeway, brake a little bit later each corner, and gas a little bit longer before you brake.
Right. Exactly.
And then you'll naturally just get faster that way.
Yeah.
And then the second part of the question was, do you have any history of your progression of lap times from when you started tracking until now? So, for example, at Laguna Seca. So I can talk about that. So we both started tracking like 3.5 years ago, I think mid 2015. At the time, I did 2 track days in my first AP2 S2000, and you were in the 8.6.
Yeah, I was slow. I'm still not that fast to this day, but yeah.
And he had the original, 16 valve engine. Anyways, in my S2000, I had just 200 treadwear tires, 245 section all around, some like street based coilovers, and that was it. I don't think I timed my first track day, but I think my second track day I did my first track day I did a 157 at Laguna, and then my second one I dropped it down to like a 153 something. And then from there on, I moved to the NSX, and then within a few track days I was running around like 151 bone stock with just tires. And then I got my current S2000 and my first Laguna day with that, I was doing like a 148. So at that point, I was definitely getting more comfortable with the car and the track in general. And then now I'm at like a 145.
All right.
So I shaved like 12 seconds between different cars in the past 3.5 years, which doesn't even sound like a whole lot, but it's a night and day difference. If you ride with me now versus riding with me on like my first track day.
I would agree as well. I mean, I can't tell you numbers off the top of my head, but I do suggest if you can, at least at the minimum, get like a Harry's lap timer or something.
Yeah, just use your phone.
Use your phone GPS. It's relatively accurate, and it's a good way to track your progression. And if you can't, I mean, maybe we could do this in another video, but like we did a thing where we compared the GPS. There's an external GPS unit you can buy with, Race Chrono Pro or Harry's lap timer.
Yeah.
It's just as accurate, basically. Maybe it's like a couple hundreds more accurate as the AIM Solo.
As the AIM Solo, yeah.
So I mean, yeah, if you spend the $100 for an external GPS and use it in the app, you can get really accurate times.
Really accurate times.
And it helps.
You have more parts, more things to set up, and more failure points. But if you can get it working reliably, it's like pretty much as good as a $400 AIM Solo.
Yeah, as much data as you can get, reliable data you can get, it's very helpful in terms of getting better. So.
Yeah, exactly. Okay. Okay, so the same person asked, so what are some of the most fun and enjoyable cars you guys have driven? Doesn't have to be the best, track car.
Okay, sure.
God, these questions are always so hard because I have to try to remember all the cars that I've
You've
reviewed.
driven a whole boatload of cars.
It's
so.
like it's probably 60 to 70 now in the past few years. The ones that still stand out in my mind, and this is gonna sound so biased, but the white NSX that was converted to a Type R kind of thing, that is still one of my favorite cars, just because it was super light. It was like 2,700 pounds, it's like the same weight as an S2000. It had a great seating position with the Recaro seats, and it had the JDM short gears and all like the bolt-on mods to make the engine feel super responsive with a light flywheel. And it just felt basically like an S2000 but mid-engine.
Okay.
Because if you compare a stock S2000 and a stock NSX, the NSX feels like a boat, like super not responsive at all.
Yeah.
But now, like with those mods, it was feeling as responsive as an S2000, but you have the benefit of the mid-engine
and a little more power too.
Yeah, so that's one of the best ones. Lotus Elise, the non-supercharged one with just stock suspension, one of my favorite all-time cars in the canyons. Super fun to drive, and even though it only makes like 190 horsepower, it's so light it doesn't even matter. Like you practically don't even have to brake. So that's another really fun one. And then, I really like the Audi R8, just because it was definitely not even the best handling car, to be honest. It didn't have super sharp turn in or whatever, but just because like the gated manual,
the experience
the high revving naturally aspirated V8 right behind you, that was just a total experience to drive.
Nice.
I can go on and on, but like those are some of the ones that stand out.
Yeah, for sure. I think for me, like I've driven quite a few cars, but a GT350 is pretty up there for me.
I need to drive one of
those. That in itself is like kind of the whole package of a driving experience for a daily driving. Because the non-R, I'm not sure how handling. It's good, but I mean, I think you need a little more suspension tuning for the R version. But like just running through the gears and hearing that engine in front of you, it's like such a great sound.
Dude, there's a guy who has one of those, and he, I see him on the way to work every now and then. Whenever I see it, I just roll the windows down. Because the stock exhaust is just it doesn't even make sense how good it sounds. Yeah, and it's so loud. It will not pass sound at Laguna Seca.
Oh, definitely. Yeah, you push a button, right, and it turns into sports. Yeah. It's just like you just run through the gears, and it's a great driving experience.
Yeah, I still want to drive those so bad.
Yeah, we'll get you in one. We should get you in one. Yeah. But yeah, that's for me, it was a great driving experience. Yeah, recently.
For sure. Okay.
So yeah, while he's looking for, I guess, more questions to answer, if you have any other questions, just ask away in the comments. I know we can't get to all of them. Sometimes we'll like we've shown before, we'll have full-blown episodes, but we'll occasionally have these, rapid fire Q&As, I guess, for you guys to try to answer all your questions. So is there anything else that you have queued up?
Yeah, there's one more. I answered a couple of questions already, like just in the comments, because I was, just bored one day. So I'm not going to go over those again. But there was one other question. What about the, going back to the track day platforms, what about the RSX Type S, the first gen TSX, C5 Corvette, E30, and the 350Z, and the E46 M3? So that's a long list of cars. So just touch briefly on it.
But you've driven some of those.
I've driven some of them. So ones I can't comment on are the first gen TSX. I've seen them on track. There's actually a couple people that are really fast in those, but just not my first thought. Like it's a front wheel drive family.
Yeah, I think it's more of a family sedan.
Yeah, so I don't know about that too much. C5 Corvette I've also never driven on track, but I did drive a C6 Corvette. I'll put the link to that track video. But Corvettes in general are just stupid fast. But they're not really like a fingertips like precise steering experience. Maybe with mods they are, but that's going down a whole different alleyway. But I have driven an RSX Type S, not on track, but I've ridden in my friend Sego's on track. He's really fast with it. They are really nice cars and really fun, but when you lower them, the front suspension geometry kind of just gets ruined because it's like McPherson struts, and you kind of lose when you go over bumps and stuff, you kind of lose some of that stability. And it tends to understeer. That's a whole nother topic, but I probably wouldn't go with the RSX Type S as a track car. E30 I've never driven either. Well, I've never driven on track, but
I don't actually see too many
on
of
track,
them
right?
on track.
There's
I
like
feel,
the spec E30,
yeah.
which is like a racing series, but besides that,
I
don't see
think
too many.
you might face a lot of reliability issues. I mean, some people love them to death.
Yeah.
I've seen a ton of autocross actually, but not
Yeah.
as many on track. Yeah.
Yeah, they're not that powerful. I mean, I don't know. I don't know too much about it, honestly. And then 350Z, never driven one. I've driven a 370Z, not on track, but I drove it pretty hard in the canyons. And my thoughts on that car is it's like really easy to drive. Everything handling wise, it gives you good feedback and it telegraphs what it's going to do. And it's very, the way it handles is very like progressive. So when you start sliding, it's very easy to catch, for example.
Oh, I see.
Decent brakes, decent power, but like everything's like a 7 out of 10. There's nothing on that car that's an 8 or a 9 out of 10. So it's overall a good package, probably pretty good on track, but not like exciting enough.
Right.
For me
It's
personally.
probably very solid, but it's not like amazing at anything. And
Yeah.
maybe we can have someone who owns that, they can speak to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
I do see a lot of them actually out there, so
Quite a
they're
few.
still pretty popular. I think that would be something that I kind of really liked. I really like the Nismo 350Z.
Oh, it looks awesome.
Even though you don't get, I don't think you get anything other than like aero.
A little,
looks,
like
right?
a little bit of power, I think.
Yeah, but I thought the 350Z's Nismo, like in red or
Oh,
black,
the front bumper and the wing
looks so good,
Yeah, it
man.
looks so
like,
good.
anyways,
And then the last car I think they mentioned was E46 M3. That's a great car. I see that on the track all the time. And there's
Yeah.
some people who are really fast.
yeah,
And it kinda-
really fast.
Yeah, it kind of, the E46 M3 is kind of like, to me, like a heavier, like German S2000 in a lot of ways. As long as far as track driving goes, I feel like the way it drives is kind of similar. You have to keep the RPMs high because it doesn't have a whole lot of torque. It's a rear wheel drive. It loves to slide around. But you know, you get the German build quality. It's a little bit more solid, and
yeah.
so
That's great points on that
Probably
one.
a great track car. And the other topic I think we're not going to go into today, but maybe in a later episode because we got the question. Any thoughts on the stigma of track guys towards autocross? Why do they look down on it so much when autocross guys don't seem to look down on track? We are going to save that topic. We're going to bring on our friend who has had a lot of autocross and track experience to be our guest and just kind of chime in on that.
Yeah.
But for now, that was just kind of our, little quick hits on the comments, the questions that we got. Obviously, if you guys have more questions, post them in the comments. Let us know what you thought about our discussion today. And stay tuned. We'll see you guys next time.